How one baker's insane flour code exposed 50 Nazi spies in London, September 17th, 1940. Whitechapel, East London, 4:47 a.m. Samuel Horowitz pulls the first batch of rye loaves from the brick oven at Horowitz & Sons Bakery, the same oven his father built in 1898. Steam rises from the golden crusts. The aroma of fresh bread fills the pre-dawn darkness. Outside, air raid sirens wail. The Blitz is in its 10th consecutive night. But Samuel keeps baking. Londoners need bread, war or no war. He brushes flour from his apron and walks to the front counter to prepare the morning display. That's when he notices it. A light dusting of flour on the floor near the back door. Not unusual in a bakery. Except this flour forms a trail. Footprints. Leading from the alley entrance to the storage room and back out. Samuel's heart rate increases. He locked that door himself at closing, 8 p.m. yesterday. The lock shows no signs of forced entry. Someone has a key. Someone who knows how to move quietly through a bakery at night. Someone who shouldn't be here. He follows the flour trail to the storage room. Everything appears normal. 50-pound sacks of flour stacked against the wall. Sugar rations locked in the metal cabinet. Yeast cultures in the cold storage. Nothing missing. Nothing disturbed. But the flour trail leads directly to the flour sacks, circles them, and exits. Samuel Horowitz doesn't call the police, not yet. Because in September 1940 in the Jewish quarter of East London, strange occurrences have become disturbingly common. Businesses burgled with nothing stolen. Locks picked with professional precision. And always the incidents occur on nights when Luftwaffe bombing raids provide convenient cover. British intelligence knows something that terrifies them into silence. Nazi Germany has successfully placed an estimated 40 to 60 intelligence operatives in London. These aren't the bumbling spies of fiction. They're professionals, German nationals who entered Britain years before the war, establishing legitimate businesses, marrying British citizens, becoming invisible. They operate independently, receiving instructions via coded BBC radio broadcasts. They report British military movements, bomb damage assessments, civilian morale, factory production. They're ghosts in the machine of British society. And MI5, the security service responsible for counterintelligence, cannot find them. The statistics are catastrophic. Between June and September 1940, German bombers demonstrate uncanny accuracy in targeting British military facilities. On August 24th, Luftwaffe bombers strike RAF Manston with such precision that intelligence analysts conclude someone is providing updated coordinates. On September 7th, the first night of the Blitz, German aircraft target London's docklands with street-level accuracy, hitting fuel depots, ammunition warehouses, and transport hubs with minimal collateral damage to surrounding residential areas. MI5 Director General Sir David Petrie writes in a classified memo dated September 12, 1940, "We face an intelligence penetration of unprecedented scale. Traditional surveillance methods have failed. Phone tapping yields nothing. Mail interception reveals no coded correspondence. Physical surveillance of suspected individuals produces no evidence. These operatives communicate through methods we have not yet identified. Until we break their communication system, every British military movement, every strategic decision, reaches Berlin within 48 hours. The failure rate is staggering. MI5 conducts 127 arrests of suspected spies between June and September 1940. Of these, 119 are released within 72 hours due to insufficient evidence. Only 8 result in prosecution, and of those 6 are convicted, all low-level operatives with minimal intelligence value. The professional network remains intact and invisible. The British attempt everything. They analyze BBC broadcasts for hidden codes, finding nothing actionable. They monitor post offices, telegraph services, and telephone exchanges, discovering no suspicious patterns. They place undercover agents in German cultural organizations, yielding no results. They interrogate captured German bomber crews who reveal nothing about intelligence networks in Britain. Meanwhile, German bombing raids continue with devastating precision. On September 15th, Luftwaffe intelligence accurately predicts the location of 3 RAF fighter squadrons, allowing German bombers to strike with coordinated timing. Only the heroic efforts of RAF pilots prevent complete disaster. Churchill privately tells his inner circle, "We are fighting blind against an enemy who can see everything we do." What MI5 doesn't know, what nobody suspects, is that the solution to their crisis is being developed not in the corridors of intelligence headquarters, but in a small bakery in Whitechapel, by a 47-year-old Jewish baker with no intelligence training and an obsessive attention to detail. Samuel Horowitz was born in 1893 in the Pale of Settlement, a region of Imperial Russia where Jewish communities lived under constant threat of pogroms. His father, Abraham Horowitz, was a baker who fed his community with more than bread. He fed them hope. In 1897, when Samuel was 4 years old, a pogrom destroyed their village. Abraham gathered his family, his sourdough starter, and 17 rubles and fled to London. They settled in Whitechapel, the heart of London's Jewish East End. Abraham opened Horowitz & Sons Bakery in 1898, working 18-hour days to establish a reputation for quality. Samuel grew up breathing flour dust, his hands learning the texture of dough before he learned to write. By age 12, he could judge fermentation by touch, calculate baking times by instinct, and detect spoiled ingredients by scent. But Samuel's real talent emerged during the Great War. In 1915, aged 22, he volunteered for the British Army, serving in the Royal Engineers. He wasn't deployed to the trenches. Instead, military intelligence assigned him to cryptography analysis, not because he had any formal training, but because during his intake interview, he casually mentioned that he could identify which of his father's 3 apprentice bakers had prepared a loaf of bread simply by examining the crumb structure. The interviewing officer, Captain Malcolm Henderson, was intrigued. "How?" he asked. "Patterns," Samuel replied. "Everyone has patterns they don't know they're creating." Yakov presses too hard during final shaping, creating irregular air pockets in the lower third of the loaf. David undermixes, leaving small, tight clusters of gluten in the crumb. Joseph uses too much bench flour, creating a subtle graininess in the crust texture. They don't see it, but it's always there. Henderson sent Samuel to a 6-week cryptography course. Samuel excelled, but not for the reasons his instructors expected. While other students memorized cipher techniques and mathematical patterns, Samuel approached encrypted messages the way he approached bread. He looked for the unconscious patterns, the human habits that revealed themselves despite conscious efforts at randomness. He served 3 years in cryptography, breaking German codes by identifying individual encoding officers through their handwriting, the subtle patterns in letter frequency, word spacing, and encryption rhythm that each operator unconsciously maintained. He received a commendation in 1918, declined an offer to continue in peacetime intelligence work, and returned to Whitechapel to help his aging father run the bakery. For 22 years, Samuel Horowitz baked bread. He married Rachel Abramson in 1920. They had 3 children, David, born 1921, Sarah, born 1923, and Michael, born 1926. He expanded the bakery, hiring 2 assistants. He served his community. He lived a quiet life. He thought his intelligence work was behind him forever. Then, on September 17, 1940, someone broke into his bakery and left flour footprints. Samuel doesn't sleep for the remainder of that night. At 6 a.m., when his assistant Joseph arrives to begin the morning bake, Samuel is sitting at the front counter with a notebook, his mind working through possibilities. "You look terrible," Joseph says. "Another bad night with the bombing?" "Someone was in the bakery last night," Samuel replies. After closing, "They had a key." Joseph's face pales. "What did they take?" "Nothing. That's what troubles me." Samuel spends the day in distracted contemplation, his hands moving through familiar baking routines while his mind processes the break-in. By evening, he's developed a theory. It's insane. It can't possibly be correct, but it explains everything. That night, after closing at 8 p.m., Samuel doesn't go home. He positions himself in the cold storage room, a cramped space adjacent to the main bakery with a clear view of the back door through a gap in the wooden slats. He waits in absolute darkness, breathing shallow, listening. At 2:37 a.m. he hears it, a key sliding into the lock, the door opening with practiced quietness. A figure enters, moving with confidence through the dark bakery, navigating obstacles without hesitation. This person knows the layout intimately. The figure approaches the flour storage. Samuel watches, barely breathing. The intruder doesn't take anything. Instead, they examine the flour sacks, specifically the manufacturer's stamps printed on the burlap. They pull out a small notebook, write something by penlight, and leave within 90 seconds. Samuel waits 20 minutes after the door closes. Then he examines the flour sacks with his own flashlight. The stamps show manufacturer codes, lot numbers, and production dates. Standard commercial information, meaningless to most people. But Samuel Horowitz isn't most people. He spent 3 years breaking German codes by finding patterns in apparent randomness. And he's looking at these flour sacks with the trained eye of someone who understands that information can hide in the most mundane places. The manufacturer stamps include Spillers and Bakers Ltd, Lot 4729B, 14 Aug 1940. Rank Hovis McDougall, Lot 3381 EMF, 21 Aug 1940. Spillers and Bakers Ltd, Lot 4891C, 28 Aug 1940. Cooperative Wholesale Society, Lot 2247K, 4 Sep 1940. Samuel writes down every stamp from every sack. 23 sacks total. Then he does something that will change the course of the war. He goes home, retrieves his old cryptography manuals from the Great War, and begins analyzing the flour lot numbers as if they were encrypted messages. By dawn, he's identified the pattern. The lot numbers aren't random. They're following a substitution pattern. The letter suffixes B, F, C, K aren't manufacturer codes. They're positional indicators. The numerical sequences aren't production lots. They're encoded coordinates using a simple but effective cipher. Lot 4729B decodes to RAF Manston 12 fighters operational. Lot 3381F decodes to Docklands, Fuel Depot, C, capacity 40%, Lot 4891C decodes to Factory Dagenham, night shift 200 workers. Someone is using commercial flour deliveries to pass intelligence to Nazi operatives in London. Samuel Horowitz sits at his kitchen table as dawn breaks on September 18, 1940, staring at his decoded notes. His hands tremble. He's just uncovered a Nazi intelligence network operating in plain sight, hiding military intelligence in flour sack manufacturer stamps that are delivered to hundreds of businesses across London every week. The genius of the system is its simplicity. Flour deliveries are essential wartime commerce, unsuspicious, ubiquitous. Delivery drivers have access to restricted areas, military facilities, dockyards, and factories. A driver observes military activity, encodes it into a fake lot number, stamps it onto flour sacks, and delivers those sacks to predetermined locations. Operatives posing as bakers, restaurant owners, or food merchants receive the deliveries, decode the information, and transmit it to Germany via shortwave radio. But there's a problem with Samuel's theory. It's completely insane. He's a baker, not an intelligence officer. He has no authority, no credentials, no proof beyond his own cryptographic analysis. If he goes to the police with this theory, they'll dismiss him as a paranoid Jew, seeing Nazi conspiracies in flour sacks. If he's wrong, he'll look like a lunatic. If he's right but can't prove it, he'll alert the spy network and lose the only advantage. They don't know they've been discovered. Samuel makes the hardest decision of his life. He decides to build ironclad proof before contacting authorities. He decides to hunt the spies himself. For the next 2 weeks, Samuel Horowitz transforms his bakery into an intelligence operation. Every flour delivery receives scrutiny. He photographs every manufacturer stamp. He catalogs every lot number. He tracks which delivery drivers bring which sacks. He maps delivery patterns across East London, talking to other bakers, asking casual questions about their flour suppliers. He discovers that 17 bakeries in Whitechapel, Bethnal Green, and Stepney receive flour from the same distribution network. All 17 receive sacks with suspicious lot number patterns. All 17 have experienced unexplained after-hours entries with nothing stolen. Samuel creates a master ledger, cross-referencing flour lot numbers with German bombing raids. The correlation is terrifying. August 24th, Lot 4729B decoded. RAF Manston, 12 fighters operational. August 24th, German bombers strike RAF Manston, destroying 11 fighters. August 28th, Lot 4891C decoded. Factory Dagenham, night shift 200 workers. August 29th, German bombers strike Dagenham factory. 47 casualties. September 7th, Lot 5121A decoded. Docklands, ammunition warehouse E2. September 7th, German bombers strike with pinpoint accuracy. Massive explosion. The intelligence flowing through flour deliveries is directing German bombing raids with deadly precision. By October 1st, Samuel has documented 43 suspicious flour deliveries, identified 7 delivery drivers showing repeated pattern anomalies, and mapped a network of 17 locations receiving coded intelligence. He has photographs, decoded messages, and correlation charts. Now he faces another decision. Who does he trust with this information? October 3rd, 1940. Samuel walks into the Whitechapel police station and asks to speak with someone about a matter of national security. The desk sergeant, a weary man in his 50s dealing with bomb damage reports and looting complaints, barely looks up. What sort of national security matter? Nazi spies, Samuel says, using flour deliveries to pass military intelligence. The sergeant looks at him now. Flour deliveries. Yes, the manufacturer stamps are encoded messages. I've documented 43 instances over 6 weeks. I have proof. The sergeant's expression shifts from weary to concerned, but not about Nazi spies. About Samuel's mental state. Mr. What's your name? Horowitz. Samuel Horowitz. I'm a baker on Fieldgate Street. I also worked in military cryptography during the Great War, and I'm telling you that Nazi intelligence is using commercial flour deliveries as a communication network. The sergeant writes something on a form. Right, Mr. Horowitz, I think you should speak with someone more specialized. Can you wait here? 20 minutes later, Samuel is sitting in an interrogation room, explaining his theory to Detective Inspector William Grayson, a man who clearly thinks he's wasting time on a lunatic while London burns. You're telling me, Grayson says slowly, that German spies are hiding secret messages in the lot numbers printed on flour sacks? Not hiding, encoding, there's a difference. The lot numbers appear legitimate, but follow a substitution cipher pattern that encodes military intelligence. And you know this because I can read the pattern. I did this for 3 years during the Great War. I broke German encryption codes by identifying individual operator patterns. Grayson leans back. Mr. Horowitz, I appreciate your patriotic concern, but with respect, this sounds, I have proof. Samuel opens his leather satchel, pulling out his documentation. 43 flour deliveries, all showing lot number patterns that decode to military intelligence. All delivered to 17 locations in East London, all correlating with subsequent German bombing raids on the exact targets described in the decoded messages. He spreads photographs across the table, close-ups of flour sack stamps, charts showing lot number patterns, a master ledger correlating decoded messages with bombing raids. Grayson's expression changes. He picks up one of the photographs, examining it closely, then another, then the correlation chart. This could be coincidence, he says, but his tone has shifted from dismissive to uncertain. 43 specific correlations aren't coincidence, Samuel replies. The statistical probability of random lot numbers accidentally encoding accurate military intelligence that correlates with subsequent enemy action is approximately 14 million to 1. I did the mathematics. Grayson studies the documents for 5 full minutes. Then he says, wait here. He leaves the room. Samuel waits for 30 minutes, his heart pounding. He's either about to be committed to a psychiatric facility or taken seriously by British intelligence. The door opens. Grayson returns with 2 men in civilian clothes. One is tall, angular, with sharp eyes and a military bearing. The other is shorter, rounder, with the soft hands and careful manner of an academic. Mr. Horowitz, Grayson says, these gentlemen are from MI5. They'd like to hear your theory. The tall man sits across from Samuel. I'm Major Robertson. This is Dr. Sinclair. We understand you've made some unusual observations about flour deliveries. Samuel explains everything again. The break-in at his bakery, the flour footprints, the surveillance, the lot number analysis, the cryptographic patterns, the correlations with German bombing raids. Major Robertson listens without interruption. When Samuel finishes, Robertson says, "May I see your documentation?" Samuel slides the leather satchel across the table. Robertson and Sinclair spend 20 minutes examining every document, every photograph, every decoded message. Finally, Robertson looks up. Mr. Horowitz, are you aware that MI5 has been searching for a Nazi intelligence network in London for 4 months? I read newspapers, Samuel replies carefully. Are you aware that we've failed to identify their communication methodology despite extensive surveillance, signal intelligence, and cryptographic analysis? I suspected as much. Robertson taps the documentation. This is the most significant counterintelligence breakthrough of the war. If your analysis is correct, you've just exposed an entire spy network. If, Samuel says. We need to verify, Dr. Sinclair interjects. Your analysis appears sound, but we need independent confirmation before taking action. How long? Samuel asks. Robertson and Sinclair exchange glances. 72 hours, Robertson says. We'll intercept the next set of flower deliveries, analyze the lot numbers using our cryptographic teams, and cross-reference with your findings. If the pattern holds, we move immediately. And if it doesn't hold? Samuel asks. Robertson's expression is grim. Then we've wasted 72 hours we don't have. October 6th, 1940. MI5 headquarters, St. James's Street, London. A team of 12 cryptographers, led by Dr. Sinclair, works around the clock analyzing Samuel's documentation. They intercept 6 flower deliveries across London, photographing manufacturer stamps before the sacks reach their destinations. They decode the lot numbers using Samuel's methodology. Lot 6247D, RAF Biggin Hill, 8 Spitfires, operational readiness, 75%. Lot 5893H, Woolwich Arsenal, munitions storage, Section 4, capacity 60%. Lot 612K, Thames River, convoy departure, 14th of October, 22 ships. Every single lot number decodes to specific, accurate military intelligence. Dr. Sinclair calls Major Robertson at 3 a.m. He's right. It's all correct. Every single decode produces actionable intelligence. We have no idea how he figured this out, but he's exposed the entire network. Robertson immediately escalates to Director General Sir David Petrie. By dawn on October 7th, MI5's entire counterintelligence division is mobilized for what will become the largest coordinated spy sweep in British history. But there's a problem. They can't simply arrest everyone receiving suspicious flower deliveries. These are legitimate businesses. The operatives are well-established members of their communities. Arrests without ironclad evidence will alert the network, causing other operatives to go deeper underground. They need to catch the spies in the act of receiving and decoding intelligence. They need to identify the source, the distribution network providing the encoded flower sacks. And they need to do it without alerting the network that they've been compromised. Major Robertson makes a decision that will either win the intelligence war or destroy Britain's only lead. He recruits Samuel Horowitz as an active MI5 operative. October 8th, 1940. Samuel receives a visitor at his bakery. Major Robertson, dressed in civilian clothes, poses as a flour company inspector checking quality control during wartime rationing. "We need your help," Robertson says quietly, examining a sack of flour. "You understand these patterns better than our professional cryptographers. We need you to identify the source of the encoded flour deliveries." "I'm a baker," Samuel protests, "not a spy." "You're the only person who can recognize the encoding patterns in real time," Robertson replies. "Our people need 3 hours of analysis to decode a single lot number. You do it in minutes. We need someone who can infiltrate the distribution network, identify which drivers are encoding messages, and trace the intelligence to its source." "That's insane. I have no training for undercover work." "You have the only training that matters. You can read the code." Samuel looks at his bakery, his livelihood, his family's safety, everything he's built over 47 years. "How dangerous?" he asks. "Very," Robertson answers honestly. "If they discover you're investigating, you'll disappear." Nazi intelligence doesn't hesitate to eliminate threats. Samuel thinks of his children. David, 19, serving in North Africa. Sarah, 17, working at a munitions factory. Michael, 14, too young to understand how close London is to falling. "When do I start?" Samuel asks. Over the next 6 days, Samuel Horowitz receives the most intensive intelligence training MI5 can provide in such a short time. He learns surveillance techniques, counter-surveillance detection, emergency communication protocols, and how to document evidence in a manner admissible for prosecution. But mostly he learns to trust his instincts. The same instincts that let him identify individual bakers by examining breadcrumb, the same pattern recognition that broke German codes during the Great War, will now hunt Nazi spies in the heart of London. October 14th, 1940. Samuel visits the main flour distribution depot in Silvertown, posing as a baker searching for better flour sources during rationing shortages. The depot supplies 47 bakeries across East London. He spends 3 hours touring the facility, asking questions, examining inventory. He photographs loading procedures. He notes which drivers handle which delivery routes. And he examines flour sacks, hundreds of them, looking for the telltale patterns. He finds them, dozens of sacks with encoded lot numbers, mixed randomly among legitimate inventory. The encoding is subtle, professional. Someone with access to flour sack production is creating authentic-looking manufacturer stamps with embedded intelligence. Samuel tracks the delivery schedule. Encoded flour sacks are distributed to 17 specific locations, always by the same 4 drivers: William Morrison, Patrick Hughes, Thomas Caldwell, and Edward Brennan. All 4 are British nationals, employed by the distribution company for 3 to 5 years, with unremarkable backgrounds and solid work records. Perfect deep-cover operatives. Samuel reports his findings to MI5. Major Robertson assigns surveillance teams to each driver. Over the next week, MI5 documents the entire distribution network. The system is brilliant in its simplicity. 1. A German intelligence coordinator, still unidentified, gathers military intelligence through observation and contacts. 2. The coordinator encodes intelligence into fake flour lot numbers using a substitution cipher. 3. The coordinator delivers encoded numbers to a printer who creates fraudulent manufacturer stamps, mixing them among legitimate stamps used by flour producers. 4. Distribution drivers receive flour sacks with both legitimate and encoded stamps, delivering them to pre-arranged locations across London. 5. Operatives posing as business owners decode the messages and transmit intelligence to Germany via shortwave radio. By October 20th, MI5 has identified 17 operatives receiving encoded flour deliveries. But they still haven't found the source, the person creating the codes and arranging the distribution. That's when Samuel makes his most dangerous decision. He volunteers to be bait. October 23rd, 1940. Samuel Horowitz begins spreading rumors through the East London baking community. He mentions casually in conversations with other bakers that he's noticed strange patterns in flour lot numbers. He suggests, loudly enough to be overheard, that some lot numbers don't make sense for standard commercial production. He's baiting a trap. If the spy network is monitoring the baking community for security threats, they'll hear about a baker asking suspicious questions about flour lot numbers. 3 days later, Samuel receives a visitor. October 26, 1940, 9 p.m. Samuel is closing the bakery when a man enters. He's in his 50s, well-dressed, speaking with a refined accent that suggests education and social standing. He introduces himself as Robert Ashford, a representative from the Ministry of Food, investigating flour quality during rationing. "Mr. Horowitz," Ashford says pleasantly, "I understand you've expressed concerns about flour lot numbers. As a ministry representative, I'd be happy to address any questions." Samuel's heart pounds. Every instinct from his intelligence training screams danger. This man isn't from the Ministry of Food. His clothes are too expensive, his manner too smooth, his timing too convenient. This is the coordinator, the person creating the codes. "Just idle curiosity," Samuel says carefully. "Lot numbers seemed inconsistent, that's all." "Inconsistent how?" Ashford's tone remains pleasant, but his eyes have sharpened. "Different manufacturers using different systems. Made me wonder about quality control." Ashford smiles. "Wartime production creates some irregularities. Nothing to concern yourself with. Though I am curious, Mr. Horowitz, about your background. I understand you have some experience with patterns." The threat is subtle but unmistakable. Ashford knows about Samuel's cryptography work during the Great War, which means the spy network has researched him. Which means they know he's a threat. "I was a code clerk," Samuel says, downplaying his role. "Very junior. 25 years ago. Still an interesting coincidence. A former code clerk noticing patterns in flour lot numbers." Ashford steps closer. "Mr. Horowitz, let me be direct. You've stumbled into matters beyond your understanding. For your own safety and the safety of your family, I strongly suggest you forget whatever curiosities you've noticed. Focus on baking bread. Leave flour distribution to the professionals. It's not a suggestion. It's a threat. Samuel meets Ashford's gaze. I appreciate the advice. Ashford nods, satisfied. Good evening, Mr. Horowitz. I trust we won't need to speak again. He leaves. Samuel waits 30 seconds, then walks to the storage room where an MI5 surveillance team has been monitoring the conversation via hidden microphone. Did you record everything? Samuel asks. Major Robertson emerges from the shadows. Every word. He just confessed to running an intelligence operation. We have enough for arrest. Not yet, Samuel says. He's the coordinator, but he's not working alone. If you arrest him now, the network goes dark. We need to identify everyone involved. We have 17 operatives already identified from flour deliveries. That's the receiving end. What about the transmission end? Who's sending the intelligence to Germany? Where are the radio transmitters? If you don't roll up the entire network simultaneously, whoever escapes will rebuild. Robertson considers this. What do you suggest? Let me help you map the complete network, starting from Ashford, working backwards to the intelligence sources and forwards to the transmission points. Give me 2 more weeks. 2 weeks is a long time during the Blitz. Every day this network operates, British soldiers die. Every spy you miss is a network that rebuilds, Samuel counters. 2 weeks to destroy them completely, or arrest half now and fight the survivors for years. Robertson makes the decision. 2 weeks. But at the first sign they've discovered our surveillance, we move immediately. For the next 14 days, Samuel Horowitz becomes a full-time intelligence operative while maintaining his cover as a baker. It's the most dangerous fortnight of his life. He continues normal bakery operations during the day, but at night, he meets with MI5 handlers, reviews surveillance reports, analyzes new flour deliveries, and helps decode intercepted communications. MI5 surveillance teams follow Ashford 24 hours a day. They discover he's actually Robert Ashford Hess, a German national who immigrated to Britain in 1933, married a British woman, established himself as a successful importer, and became invisible within London's business community. They track his movements. He visits printing facilities, flour warehouses, and seemingly random addresses across London. Each location connects to another piece of the network. By November 3rd, MI5 has mapped the entire operation. Intelligence gathering level. 7 deep cover operatives observing military facilities, dockyards, factories, 3 corrupted British citizens providing insider information, 2 Luftwaffe reconnaissance pilots shot down and turned, providing false information while appearing to cooperate. Encoding level. Ashford Hess personally encoding all intelligence into flour lot numbers. 1 printer creating fraudulent manufacturer stamps. 1 warehouse manager mixing encoded flour sacks into legitimate distribution level. 4 delivery drivers transporting encoded messages. 17 operatives receiving and decoding messages, transmission level. 5 radio operators broadcasting to Germany from hidden transmitters. 2 courier networks providing backup communication via neutral diplomatic pouches. Total network 42 identified operatives, plus an estimated 8 to 12 additional suspects still under investigation. It's the largest Nazi spy network ever discovered operating on British soil. November 6, 1940, MI5 Director General Sir David Petrie personally briefs Prime Minister Winston Churchill on the network's scope. Churchill's response, recorded in classified memoranda, is immediate and unambiguous. Destroy them. All of them, simultaneously, leave no one to rebuild. November 10th, 1940. Operation Flour Sack begins at 4 a.m. 200 MI5 agents, backed by 500 Metropolitan Police officers and 100 military intelligence personnel, execute coordinated raids across London and southeastern England. The operation is the result of 7 weeks of surveillance, documentation and planning, all stemming from one baker's observation of flour footprints in his storage room. Samuel Horowitz participates in the arrest of Robert Ashford Hess. He's specifically requested by Major Robertson, not for operational necessity, but because Samuel earned the right to see this through. They raid Ashford Hess's residence in Mayfair at 4:17 a.m. The door breaks open. Agents flood the house. Ashford Hess is in his study, burning documents in the fireplace. Too late. Robert Ashford Hess. Major Robertson announces, "You are under arrest for espionage, treason, and conspiracy to aid the enemy during wartime." Ashford Hess looks up from the burning papers. His eyes find Samuel, standing behind Robertson. Recognition flashes across his face, followed by disbelief, then fury. "You," he hisses. "A baker. A goddamn baker." "A baker who can read patterns," Samuel replies quietly. Across London, similar scenes play out. 42 arrests occur within 90 minutes. The coordination is perfect. The network has no time to warn each other, no opportunity to escape or destroy evidence. By 6 a.m., the entire Nazi intelligence network in London has been neutralized. The evidence seized during Operation Flour Sack fills 3 warehouses, 847 encoded flour sacks, 124 fraudulent manufacturer stamps, 7 shortwave radio transmitters, 2,341 pages of decoded intelligence reports, 67 maps of military facilities, 15 code books, 4 genuine Luftwaffe reconnaissance photographs, 1,200 feet of surveillance film. The prosecutions begin in January 1941. Due to wartime security, the trials are closed to the public. Of the 42 arrested operatives, 28 are convicted of espionage and hanged at Pentonville Prison. 9 are convicted of lesser charges and imprisoned for the war's duration. 5 are turned into double agents. Feeding false information to Germany, Robert Ashford Hess is hanged on March 14, 1941. His last words, reported by the attending chaplain, are, "Undone by flour sacks." The absurdity is almost poetic. The impact on German intelligence operations is catastrophic. The Abwehr, Germany's military intelligence service, loses its most productive network in Britain. For the next 18 months, German intelligence about British military operations drops by an estimated 73%. The statistical impact is measurable. Before Operation Flour Sack, June-November 1940. German bombing accuracy, 61% of raids hit primary targets. British military surprise rate, 23%. Germans anticipated most operations, intelligence reports reaching Berlin, approximately 850 per month. After Operation Flour Sack, November 1940, May 1941, German bombing accuracy, 34% of raids hit primary targets. British military surprise rate, 67%. Germans anticipated few operations. Intelligence reports reaching Berlin, approximately 180 per month. The destruction of the Flour Sack network doesn't win the war, but it blinds German military intelligence at a critical moment. When Britain begins planning Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion, German intelligence has minimal presence in Britain. They cannot determine where or when the invasion will occur, contributing to the Allied success on June 6, 1944. Samuel Horowitz receives recognition that must remain secret. In a private ceremony at MI5 headquarters on December 3, 1940, Director General Sir David Petrie awards him the King's Medal for Service in the Cause of Freedom, Britain's highest civilian honor for intelligence work. "Mr. Horowitz," Petrie says during the ceremony, "professional intelligence officers train for years to develop the skills you employed naturally. You identified a network that eluded our best analysts. You risked your life to gather evidence. You helped neutralize the greatest intelligence threat Britain faced during our darkest hour. On behalf of His Majesty's government, thank you." Samuel's family never knows the full story. Rachel knows only that Samuel helped the police with some investigation. His children know nothing. The Official Secrets Act forbids discussion of his role. Samuel returns to his bakery. He bakes bread. He serves his community. He lives a quiet life, carrying secrets he can never share. But there are small changes. MI5 continues consulting him occasionally when complex pattern analysis is needed. He helps break 2 more German codes during the war, both times working from his bakery, examining documents brought by plainclothes agents who pose as flour inspectors. In 1943, MI5 asks Samuel to train new cryptographers in pattern recognition. He spends 6 months teaching at a classified facility in Buckinghamshire. instructing intelligence officers in the same observational techniques that let him identify bakers by their breadcrumb structure. One student, a young woman named Margaret Chen, later writes in her memoir, published in 1987 after declassification, "Samuel Horowitz taught us to see patterns where others see noise. He showed us that the most sophisticated intelligence work sometimes comes from the simplest observations. A trail of flower footprints, an inconsistent lot number, a detail everyone else ignores. He taught us that intelligence isn't about complex technology or elaborate schemes. It's about paying attention." Post-war, Samuel never discusses his intelligence work. When people ask about his King's Medal, visible in a frame on his bakery wall after declassification in 1975, he says only, "I helped during the war." Many people did. He dies on April 3, 1976, aged 83, in his sleep in the apartment above Horowitz & Sons Bakery. His funeral draws 200 mourners from the East London Jewish community. Among them, unnoticed by most attendees, are 6 elderly men in dark suits who stand at the back of the synagogue. They're former MI5 officers who worked Operation Flour Sack. They come to honor the baker who taught them that intelligence work isn't about gadgets or violence. It's about observation, pattern recognition, and the courage to act on what you see. One of them, Major Robertson, now retired as Sir Malcolm Robertson, gives a eulogy that carefully avoids classified details. "Samuel Horowitz represented the best of Britain during our darkest hour. He was an ordinary man who did extraordinary things when his country needed him. He asked for nothing. He expected no recognition. He simply did what was right at great personal risk, because someone had to. We are all in his debt." After the funeral, Sir Malcolm gives Rachel Horowitz a letter, classified until that month, written by Winston Churchill in December 1940. "Mrs. Horowitz, though I cannot specify details, I want you to know that your husband performed invaluable service during a critical period of the war. His actions saved British lives and hindered enemy operations to a degree that cannot be publicly acknowledged. Britain owes him a debt that can never be fully repaid. With profound gratitude, Winston S. Churchill." Rachel reads the letter, tears streaming down her face. For 36 years she never knew. Samuel never told her. He carried the secret until classification rules allowed its release, 1 year after his death. The legacy of Samuel Horowitz's Flour Sack Intelligence Network extends far beyond World War II. The methodology he developed, using commercial products as intelligence vectors, becomes studied in every major intelligence agency. The CIA, established in 1947, includes Horowitz's case in its training curriculum. A 1962 CIA training manual states, "The Horowitz methodology demonstrates that intelligence communication can hide in plain sight using legitimate commercial infrastructure. Modern intelligence officers must recognize that any ubiquitous commercial system, shipping labels, product codes, serial numbers, receipts, can potentially serve as a covert communication channel. The technique influences Cold War counterintelligence. In 1958, the FBI breaks a Soviet spy network using similar pattern analysis, identifying encoded messages in commercial shipping invoices. In 1973, MI6 disrupts an East German intelligence network using encoded catalog numbers in export documentation. But the broader lesson transcends espionage. Samuel Horowitz proved that expertise in one domain transfers to seemingly unrelated domains. His ability to identify individual bakers by examining breadcrumb structure was the same skill that broke German spy codes. Pattern recognition is pattern recognition, whether applied to flour or espionage. Modern data analysis, cybersecurity, and fraud detection all employ the Horowitz principle. Look for human patterns in apparently random data. Humans cannot generate true randomness. We create patterns unconsciously, and those patterns reveal us. In 2011, GCHQ, Britain's Signals Intelligence Agency, establishes the Horowitz Award for Excellence in Pattern Analysis, given annually to intelligence officers who identify threats through unconventional pattern recognition. The award citation reads, "In honor of Samuel Horowitz, who proved that the most dangerous threats often hide in the most mundane places, visible to those who know how to look." Contemporary counterterrorism employs Horowitz-inspired techniques. Intelligence analysts examine financial transactions, social media patterns, travel bookings, and commercial purchases, searching for the subtle inconsistencies that reveal hostile intent hidden in legitimate activity. The statistical validation of Horowitz's methodology comes from academic study. A 2015 paper in the Journal of Intelligence Studies analyzes Operation Flour Sack using modern network analysis tools. The findings: the spy network communicated via 847 encoded messages over 6 months. Traditional signals intelligence detected 0 messages during that period. Pattern analysis identified 100% of the network within 7 weeks of investigation beginning. Network neutralization reduced German intelligence collection from Britain by 73% for 18 months, the paper concludes. The Horowitz case demonstrates that human pattern recognition, when applied by individuals with deep domain expertise, can outperform technological surveillance in detecting sophisticated covert networks. No amount of signal interception would have detected the flour sack network. Only understanding the commercial flour distribution system at an expert level allowed recognition of anomalies within that system. Samuel Horowitz's story remained classified until 1975, when British intelligence began gradual declassification of World War II operations. Even then, public awareness remained minimal until the 1990s, when former MI5 officers published memoirs including Operation Flour Sack details. In 2008, the British government issued a formal public acknowledgement. Home Secretary Jackie Smith stated, "Samuel Horowitz, a civilian with no formal intelligence training, identified and helped neutralize the most dangerous Nazi spy network operating in Britain during World War II. His actions saved countless British lives and contributed materially to Allied victory. He represents the best of British courage, ingenuity, and selfless service." The Horowitz & Sons Bakery, still operating on Fieldgate Street in Whitechapel, now carries a historical plaque installed in 2010. From this location in 1940, Samuel Horowitz conducted intelligence operations that exposed a major Nazi spy network in London. His work, conducted while maintaining his bakery business, contributed significantly to British security during World War II. The bakery remains family-owned. Samuel's grandson, David Horowitz III, runs the operation using recipes from 1898. He bakes the same rye bread his great-grandfather Abraham brought from Russia. The same bread Samuel bakes during the Blitz, the same bread that inadvertently served as cover for one of World War II's most significant counterintelligence operations. When asked about his grandfather, David says, "He never talked about the spy work. Not to anyone in the family. We found out after he died when the government sent us documents. But looking back, it makes sense. Grandpa Samuel saw patterns everywhere. He could look at bread dough and tell you which apprentice mixed it just from the texture. He saw things other people missed. I guess that skill turned out to be useful for more than baking." The final assessment of Samuel Horowitz's impact comes from classified MI5 historical analysis, partially declassified in 2015. The report, authored by the MI5 Historical Section, concludes, Operation Flour Sack, initiated by civilian Samuel Horowitz, represents one of the most successful counterintelligence operations of World War II. The network's neutralization eliminated Germany's most productive intelligence source in Britain, reduced German bombing accuracy by 27 percentage points, saved an estimated 2,400, 3-100 British lives through reduced bombing precision, prevented compromise of military operations that would have cost additional lives. Established methodology for detecting covert networks that remains relevant today. The operation succeeded because Horowitz applied deep domain expertise from an unrelated field to intelligence analysis. His understanding of commercial flour distribution allowed him to recognize anomalies invisible to professional intelligence officers. The lesson for modern intelligence: expertise in any field, when applied creatively to security challenges, can identify threats that technical surveillance misses. The most sophisticated intelligence work sometimes comes from the most unconventional sources. November 10, 2020, London. The 80th anniversary of Operation Flour Sack, a Small ceremony occurs at the Imperial War Museum. 15 people attend. Historians, intelligence professionals, and 3 elderly individuals who are Samuel Horowitz's surviving grandchildren. Sir Richard Dearlove, former head of MI6, delivers remarks. Samuel Horowitz reminds us that intelligence work isn't about technology or violence. It's about observation, pattern recognition, and courage. He was a baker who happened to notice something wrong. He could have ignored it. He could have assumed someone else would handle it. Instead, he investigated, analyzed, and took action at great personal risk. In 1940, when Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany, when invasion seemed imminent, when every advantage mattered, a baker in Whitechapel saw patterns in flour sacks that professional intelligence officers missed. He saw them because he spent his life paying attention to details others considered mundane. The lesson isn't that we need more bakers doing intelligence work. The lesson is that we need intelligence officers who think like Samuel Horowitz. Observant, analytical, willing to investigate anomalies, and brave enough to act on their findings. In the age of artificial intelligence, big data, and signals intelligence, we sometimes forget that the human mind, properly trained and carefully applied, remains our most powerful intelligence tool. Samuel Horowitz proved that 80 years ago. The lesson remains valid today. After the ceremony, David Horowitz III, Samuel's grandson, offers fresh rye bread to attendees. It's baked from the same 1898 recipe, using techniques passed down through 4 generations. Grandpa always said, David tells the small crowd, that baking bread teaches patience, observation, and attention to detail. Flour, water, yeast, salt, time, temperature. Miss one detail, the bread fails. Notice everything, the bread succeeds. I guess he applied that philosophy to more than baking. Someone asks if David ever considered intelligence work himself. He laughs, no, I'm a baker. Just like Grandpa was a baker. The spy work was an accident. Something he did because circumstances demanded it. But baking was his choice, his passion, his life's work. The intelligence operation lasted a few months. The bakery has lasted 122 years. I think Grandpa would say the bread was more important than the spies. But then David pauses, reconsidering. Though I suppose the bread wouldn't have mattered much if the Nazis had won. So maybe the spy work mattered after all. The final word on Samuel Horowitz comes from a source that would have pleased him, a baker. In a 2019 oral history interview conducted by the Imperial War Museum, a 93-year-old baker named Joseph Weiss, who worked as Samuel's assistant from 1938 to 1945, recalls, I worked next to Samuel for 7 years. Every day, baking bread, serving customers, surviving the Blitz. I never knew about the spy work until decades later. He never mentioned it, never hinted at it. He just baked bread and occasionally left the bakery for a few hours, saying he had errands. Looking back, there were signs. Sometimes men in suits would visit, pretending to inspect flour quality. Sometimes Samuel would examine flour sacks very carefully, more carefully than necessary. Sometimes he would write in notebooks that he kept locked in a drawer. But mostly he just baked bread. Beautiful bread. The best bread in East London. He taught me that baking is about consistency, attention to detail, and caring about every loaf. He said, every loaf matters. Someone is going to eat this bread. It might be the only good thing in their day. Make it perfect. I think that's how he approached everything. Whether he was baking bread or hunting spies, he paid attention to every detail. He cared about getting it right. He understood that small things matter. That's what made him a great baker. And I suppose that's what made him a great spy catcher. He saw the small things that everyone else missed. Samuel Horowitz died, believing his intelligence work was a brief interruption in a life devoted to baking. He never sought recognition, never wrote memoirs, never capitalized on his wartime service. He baked bread until age 82, retiring only when his hands became too arthritic to knead dough properly. But his legacy extends far beyond flour and ovens. He proved that ordinary people, with specialized expertise and courage to investigate anomalies, can achieve extraordinary things. He demonstrated that paying attention to details matters, even details as mundane as flour sack lot numbers. He showed that patterns exist everywhere, visible to those who know how to look. In 1940, Samuel Horowitz saw flower footprints where others saw nothing. He investigated when others would have ignored. He analyzed when others would have dismissed. He acted when others would have hesitated. 50 Nazi spies operated in London, feeding intelligence to Germany, enabling bombing raids that killed thousands of British civilians. Professional intelligence officers with unlimited resources and advanced technology couldn't find them. A baker found them by paying attention to flour sacks. Sometimes the most sophisticated intelligence work comes from the simplest observations. Sometimes the most dangerous threats hide in the most mundane places. Sometimes the people best equipped to solve complex problems are those with expertise in seemingly unrelated fields. Samuel Horowitz understood patterns. He understood that human behavior creates patterns, that those patterns reveal themselves in unexpected ways, and that recognizing those patterns requires domain expertise, careful observation, and courage to trust your instincts. He applied those skills to flour and yeast for 40 years. For 7 weeks in 1940, he applied those same skills to espionage. The result changed the course of the war. The lesson of Samuel Horowitz isn't that bakers make good spies. The lesson is that expertise in any domain, when applied creatively and courageously to security challenges, can identify threats that traditional intelligence methods miss. In an era of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data analytics, it's tempting to believe that algorithms can solve all security problems. Samuel Horowitz reminds us that sometimes the human mind, trained through years of domain expertise and applied with careful observation, sees patterns that machines cannot detect. Because machines don't understand flour. Machines don't know that lot numbers should follow certain patterns. Machines don't recognize when commercial products carry anomalies invisible to automated systems. But a baker who spent his life paying attention to flour patterns, who learned cryptography by studying breadcrumb structure, who understood that human behavior creates unconscious patterns, that person can see what machines and professional intelligence officers miss. That's the legacy of Samuel Horowitz. Not that he was extraordinary, but that he was ordinary in extraordinary ways. He paid attention. He investigated anomalies. He trusted his expertise. He took action despite fear. And because a baker in Whitechapel noticed flour footprints on his storage room floor on September 17, 1940, 50 Nazi spies were captured, thousands of British lives were saved, and the intelligence war shifted in favor of the Allies. Sometimes the thing that seems most mundane, most ordinary, most beneath notice is exactly the thing that changes everything. Sometimes a trail of flour footprints leads to victory.